Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing? I'm Brian Manning, political asylum lawyer, and I help people all over the country to secure their future in the United States through asylum. So, I want to say a couple of words today about what happens after you get asylum. What's next? Okay. And then I'm going to take your questions. You can go ahead and start leaving them in the comments. So, whatever questions you have about asylum in the United States, whether it's with USCIS or in the immigration court, whether you've already applied or are thinking about applying, anything about asylum, let me have it. I'm going to address your questions in just a minute. I want to say a little bit first, though, about what happens after you get asylum, because not everyone knows what the benefits are, what it means for you, how you can use it, what you get from getting asylum. And I'll start just by saying the benefits are huge, okay? Winning asylum is a very big deal. You first and foremost get to stay here. It's not technically like permanent, but it's basically permanent. Okay, you definitely want to go from asylum to a more permanent, more stable status, which I'll tell you about in 1 second. But you can think of asylum as it's the ability to stay here. Okay, to be safe, not have to go back to your country where you fear being harmed, to be here and to work legally. As soon as you win asylum, you can work legally. You may know that once your asylum case has been pending for 5 months, you're eligible to apply for a work permit based on a pending asylum case. But when you win asylum, you can work legally immediately. Even you don't even have to have a work permit card. And even if it took less than 5 months to get that asylum grant, you can still work legally immediately as soon as you're granted asylum. Okay, so that's one huge benefit. The great thing about asylum is that it does lead to permanent residence. So 1 year after winning asylum, you are eligible to apply for your green card. That's what they call the little card that you get that says that you're a lawful permanent resident. They call it that because it's green. So they call it a green card, and it's just proof that you are a lawful permanent resident, which means you can stay here permanently. You can stay in the United States permanently. Okay, and that's a huge thing. It's even more stable than having asylee status, and it leads to U.S. citizenship. But actually, before you get the permanent residence, you can apply for what's called a refugee travel document, which is kind of like a passport. It looks and serves basically as a passport that you can use to travel out of the United States and back in. Get back in with really pretty much no risk of being denied entry unless you went back to your country that you're claiming asylum from. Then you won't get back in probably. Or if you've done something bad that the government learns about before you try to come back in. So you get the refugee travel document so you can travel. And that's a big deal for a lot of people because a lot of you have been waiting for asylum for years. And you want to go abroad, whether it's to visit family members, like meet up with family in a third country, or just go on a vacation. Whatever the case may be, once you win asylum, you can do that with confidence that you're going to get back in because you can get this refugee travel document based on your asylee status. So that's big. Now, back to permanent residence. When are you eligible to apply for your green card based on the fact that you have asylum? Well, 1 year after you are granted asylum, you're eligible to apply for permanent residence. So you take the date in your approval letter and on your I-94 little card that you get that says asylum approved, it will say the date on which you are officially approved for asylum, whether that's from the asylum office or the immigration court. And you go 1 year from that, and that's when you can send in your application for your green card or permanent residence based on asylee status. Now, here's the sort of tricky part and unfortunate part is that you have to wait 4 years after you get your permanent residence before you're eligible to apply for U.S. citizenship. And people always say, does the time that I'm waiting for my green card, does that count towards those 4 years? Because it takes a while to get your green card based on asylum status, okay? I checked the other day, and like the wait time right now, I think it said 40.5 months, or at least 40 months. So that's over 3.5 years. Yeah, over 3 years that people are waiting right now to get their green card based on asylum. So those 3 years, unfortunately, do not count toward the 4 years that you have to show that you've been a permanent resident for. Unfortunately, okay. So you actually have to take the time. The date that your green card says permanent resident as of starting on X date, that's the date that you have to take. And then you have to go 4 years from that to be able to apply for your US citizenship. Okay. So it's going to be more than 4 years because everyone's waiting more than a year. Pretty much everyone's waiting more than a year now for their green card. After applying for it, you have to wait a year to even apply. And then it's taking usually several years to get it. And then from the time you get it, you have to wait 4 years to be able to apply for US citizenship. So it is a while, but you absolutely should do it. Citizenship is the best, comes with the most rights, comes with the most protections. It's nearly impossible to get deported once you're a citizen. And you may be thinking like, oh, well, I'm cool as an asylee, or it's fine just to stay as a permanent resident. I'm not worried about getting deported. I'm not a criminal. I'm not going to do bad things. Why would they deport me? Well, it happens. It happens to people who say that exact thing. Okay. It happens to people that do things that most people would agree are not that bad of things. But our immigration laws, you see, punish certain things very, very harshly, and things that you would never begin to think, oh yeah, that should get someone deported, can get people deported. So, and when you become a U.S. citizen, you can vote in federal elections and make your voice heard. You should do it. Okay. You should definitely do it. So really the benefits of asylum are huge because you get to stay here. You can get a refugee travel document. You can work immediately. 1 year later, you're eligible for a green card. 4 years after your green card, you can get U.S. citizenship. So it takes you down this path that offers huge benefits. So getting asylum is huge. Also, as an asylee, you're eligible for certain benefits like money assistance, cash assistance, and certain programs for people that need some help. You become eligible for some of those once you get asylum, and you're not eligible for those as an asylum applicant, but you are once you win asylum. Okay. So that can help a lot of people too. So that is what's going on. I talked about the benefits of applying for asylum. There's risk too. I'm not going to go deep into this now, but the main risk is that when you apply for asylum, you're raising your hand and telling the government, hey, here I am. You're drawing attention to yourself. And if you're not already in deportation proceedings, the risk is that, well, when you go to the asylum office, if you get a negative decision, if they don't give you asylum, they look at the moment that they're making that negative decision at your immigration status. And if you do not have immigration status, you get put in deportation proceedings. The government starts trying to deport you. You get to present your asylum case again before the judge, and the judge can decide to give you asylum, or they may order your deportation, make an order of deportation. And so that's the risk, is that you're bringing, if you are not already in deportation proceedings and you're deciding, okay, do I want to apply for asylum with USCIS? You're taking a risk in doing that by raising your hand and drawing attention to yourself. But, you have to balance that with like, how strong is your case, but also what's the alternative? Just to stay in the shadows, as we say, meaning, if you don't have another route to status, if you don't have a qualifying U.S. citizen or green card holder family member who can, or in some cases an employer who can petition for you, who can ask for you to get status through them. If you don't have that, then you probably don't have another good option to get any kind of long-term status here. So the option then is, okay, do I just stay in the shadows and not be able to work legally, or take a risk and apply for asylum, knowing that if I don't win, I'm going to get put in deportation proceedings and I might actually get deported someday. That's the analysis you have to take. Now, an asylum lawyer can help you work through this analysis, this decision, because one of the factors is, how strong is your case? If you have virtually no chance at winning, it might not make much sense to apply for asylum. And that's what we tell people. And we do tell people exactly that sometimes. We say, I think you have virtually no chance of winning, and you should think very carefully before applying for asylum, because you're almost certainly going to get put in immigration court and probably ordered deported. Okay. So that is what I wanted to cover first. So let's go ahead then and get to the questions, both on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well, and LinkedIn. So at the top, we've got a question on YouTube from BS Channel. Do you do adjustment of status based on asylum? Yes, we do. We do. And I recommend that you do hire a lawyer for that. It can be a bit tricky. more so than you would think. I can completely understand where someone would think, oh, you know what? All I have to do is show that I got asylum a year or more ago, and that's all there is to it. It can actually be a bit trickier. We see USCIS play little games with people and try to get them deported by going over their adjustment of status application, and actually all of their immigration applications. If they ever applied for a visa, that application or those applications, if they ever applied for anything else with USCIS, like a work permit or a change of status or extension of status, and their green card application and all their asylum materials, including the officer's notes that the officer took during the interview of what you said, they look at all that and they look for inconsistencies or things that they think are inconsistencies, which means two things that just like don't match up or contradict each other. And they do this a lot during this step, during this adjustment of status step. And when they think that they found something that they can get you on, they send the case back to the asylum office and say, we recommend, asylum office, that you start termination proceedings, the process of terminating or ending, taking away someone's asylee status. This happens more than I would have thought. And once the government starts trying to do that, when they decide they want to try to take away your asylee status, they almost always do it. It's really hard to win and get them to not do it. So you do have to be careful with these adjustment of status applications based on asylum. Okay. So, and yeah, to answer your question, we help people with those. Okay. Okay. So Petrie says, hey, Brian, good evening. My asylum case is denied by USCIS. Does that affect my asylum case? I'm not sure I understand the question. I think maybe you meant to say something else for one of those instead of saying asylum case both times. Let me know if you can clarify for that. Okay. Okay. Well, wait. Okay. Yeah. So in the second question, you already did clarify. Petrie says, my brother's asylum case was denied by USCIS. Will that affect your asylum case? Okay. So the question is, if you have like a family member, brother, someone who has their case denied, does that mean your case is going to get denied by USCIS or by the immigration judge? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, you may have different facts. You may have a better case than your brother had, but like, can they use those? Can they use your brother's case against you? Can they use what he said against you, like, or try to find inconsistencies between what like you're saying and what your brother said? Only if you both consent to that. They would have to, if they read your brother's case and let's say you both described the same incident. Let's say you were attacked at the same time by some guys, and your brother says there was 20 guys that attacked us, and you say it was 5 guys. That would be an inconsistency. But to really use that in your case, they would have to get both of you to agree to have your brother's evidence, because his testimony, what he says is considered evidence. You would both have to agree for your brother's evidence to be used in your case in order for them to use that against you, to use it against you formally. However, they may be influenced by what happened in your brother's case without using it formally. Like they may think, Petrie's lying because none of this lines up with what his brother said. They may read the notes from the officer and look at your brother's case materials. So it can impact it possibly, but I mean the mere fact that he lost does not necessarily mean you're going to lose. So don't think about it like that. Okay. Don't worry about that too much. Okay. All right. Let's get to someone who has asked a question. Yeah. Okay. Let's take one from TikTok. If USCIS call me for a master's hearing for credible fear, can they detain me? Okay. Well, let me disentangle that, because so if you have a credible fear interview, it's not the same thing as a master's hearing. A master calendar hearing is something for people who are already in deportation proceedings. It's like the preliminary sort of administrative hearing for that. Okay. So credible fear does not happen in immigration court. It's at the asylum office. Or if you're detained, it's while you're detained by telephone with an asylum officer who's calling from an asylum office. Sometimes they come to detention centers and do them in person, but normally it's by phone. I've done many hundreds of these by telephone. Or if you're not detained, it's in person at the asylum office. So it's not a master calendar hearing. It's just called a credible fear interview. But the real point of your question is, can they detain you? Yeah, but they don't detain people just for the heck of it. Like there was already a decision made by ICE to let you go, right? Like you were probably already detained, and they let you go. But so they decided we don't need to detain this person. But the only real reason that they would arrest someone, not the only reason, but the main and usual reason that they would arrest someone at a credible fear interview is if that person has gone on to commit some crime, or if the government became aware after releasing you that you committed some crime and they think that you're a danger. But like just based on the fact that you don't have lawful immigration status, no, that's not a reason that they're going to come and arrest you. So I wouldn't really worry about it. Okay. All right. Let's go to, that was TikTok. What about, let's take another one from TikTok. So what about Afghan refugee asylum? Yeah, we're helping a bunch of Afghans, and you should apply. There's no guarantee you'll win. You should, like every Afghan really pretty much should be getting approved almost, but they are actually denying some. Okay. So don't think, all I have to do is apply and not think about it. It'll be easy. That's it. It's not how it works, unfortunately. So, you should apply for TPS. Afghans can apply for temporary protected status. Even if you still have valid status right now, if you got parole and it's valid, it doesn't matter. You should still apply, in my opinion, for both asylum and TPS, because parole is not permanent. And I know you've heard that there's a lot of talk about passing a law that would just give you like a green card or a route to get permanent status. That's all talk so far. Okay. It hasn't happened. It's been a long time that you've been here, or that Afghans came here, in the summer of August, starting in August of 2021. And when the Taliban took back over, and that law has not been passed. So it might never be. So you should apply for everything, and that not just for Afghans, for everyone. That's my advice in general, is you want to apply for any and everything you can that may give you long-term status here. So they're not mutually exclusive. Applying for TPS, if your country is designated, like Afghanistan and Venezuela, there's others, but those are two of the more recent designations. That and asylum at the same time is perfectly fine. The cases don't hurt each other. There's no problem there. Okay, so you should apply for both. And let us know if let us know if you have questions, in particular questions about Afghans applying for it. By the way, I'm going to put my phone number, on Facebook and YouTube, it's already up at the top. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the screen as well for a second. And on TikTok and other media, go to my profile. You should be able to find it there. Okay. It's 713-909-0401. So for those of you who just joined, I'm Brian Manning, and I'm a political asylum lawyer. I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but I changed, and now I'm a lawyer. So I help people all over the country secure their future in the United States through asylum. Doesn't matter where you are. Okay. We have clients all over, and got lots in Florida, lots in New York, New Jersey, lots in Chicago, lots throughout Texas, and then throughout California, and everywhere in between, and in other states and cities as well. So we can help you no matter where you are. Okay. So give us a call if you want to talk to a political asylum lawyer about your situation. Okay. It's 713-909-0401. All right, let's go. We were on TikTok for a few questions. Let's go back let's go to Facebook. Blanco says, there's the rest of your question. Blanco says, is it possible to win asylum if the person has cancer? Maybe will it help from a humanitarian perspective? Well, first of all, Blanco, I'm really sorry to hear about if you or a loved one has cancer. I'm sorry to hear that. That's tough. That sounds very difficult. So I'm really sorry you're in that position. The answer, unfortunately, is no. It doesn't really help to win asylum. it may help you to expedite the interview. Okay. If you've been waiting, it doesn't matter how long you've been waiting, you can use this as a legitimate reason to ask that they hurry up your case, so they give you an interview soon. Now, if you're just now applying, it's happening really fast recently for most people. Most people are getting their interview within 2 or 3 months after applying. But if you applied a while ago and you're in the backlog, the long line, and you're waiting, then you can use that as a valid excuse or a reason to get them to schedule your interview sooner. Okay. And Blanco, by the way, I see the Venezuelan flag and based on your name, I want you to know that I have a Spanish language YouTube channel called Asilo para Venezolanos in EEUU that you can check out on YouTube. If you search that on YouTube, you'll find it. Okay. Thank you for the question. All right. But no, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't really help you like to win asylum. It's not something they're going to take into account in assessing your case and deciding whether you qualify. So, I mean, can it have like a tiny bit of an impact? Like even if it's only psychological? Well, yeah, maybe it might make the officer a little sympathetic, but it definitely does not enter into the formal analysis of like whether you qualify. It's not a consideration. Okay. All right. So a question about Immaculate Collections about, thanks for the update. You're welcome. Is it possible to get into the U.S. and later go ahead to the Canadian border to apply for asylum? That's actually tricky. We actually have an agreement with Canada that says that people can't do that, or that like basically if someone goes from one country to the other, crossing the land border and tries to apply for asylum, that country into which they are crossing will not give them asylum. Like the idea is you should try to apply in the first country that you come to between Canada and the United States. But it's kind of tricky that the way that the rules coming from that treaty, the way they get interpreted and applied is a little bit complicated. So I'm not going to give you a hard no, but I'm going to tell you that it's tricky. And before you try it, you should talk in detail about your particular situation to an asylum lawyer. On YouTube, Sharon says, "Hey, Brian, thanks for keeping us updated." My pleasure. You're welcome. So on YouTube, Syed Ahmed says, "Can I ask you, I gave the interview 2 months ago. It went well. I submitted all the necessary documents. When will I get the result?" I don't know. Usually it's a few weeks. Like I would say the average is maybe like 4 weeks when it's mailed out, as opposed to when you go back to the asylum office to pick it up, when they tell you to do that. So, but if they tell you to mail it out, that it's going to be a mail out, you can't just say, "Oh no, I'll come pick it up." They're going to mail it to you. So yeah, it's going to be, I don't know. There's no way to tell. It could be soon. It could be very soon. It could be quite a while. If you've been waiting overall, like from the time that you applied, if you've been waiting for more than 3 years, then you could consider suing the government or threatening to sue to get your decision. Okay. I talk about this a lot, about suing the government in what's called a mandamus lawsuit. I talk about it usually in the context of trying to get your interview, because there's a lot of people that have been waiting for years to get their interview. But you can also use it to get your decision, because the government has to act in a reasonable period of time, and they haven't acted appropriately in a reasonable period of time if they haven't given you your decision. That's part of the case. It's not just give you the interview, it's actually make a decision. Do your whole case, interview and decision, okay? So keep that in mind. I don't know how long you've been waiting in total, but keep that in mind. Petrie says, "Thank you. You're welcome." Okay. USCIS scheduled my interview date after 3 months later. Is that normal? Yep, it is. Not sure what that question means. All right. So Ahmed Musawar says, sorry if I messed up the name. "I had my biometrics done today. I'm now waiting for the interview date." Congratulations. Ahmed, did you apply recently, and did you apply online? For those of you who don't know, you can apply online with USCIS now. Most people don't know this, including most immigration lawyers don't know this yet. We've been doing it at my office back since November, and it's great. It's well, the software is a little bit clunky. There's some issues with it, but overall it's great because you get the receipt notice, the letter that says, hey, thanks, we received your application and it's pending as of X date. You get that like the next day after you apply, usually 1 or 2 days, sometimes the same day. And that's great. And it's much, much better than when you apply on by paper with physical mail, because in those cases, it's been taking like 3 or 4 months recently for most people to get the receipt notice. And that slows everything down. You can't get your biometrics like Ahmed had until you get the receipt notice. So yeah, Ahmed, if you applied recently, especially if you applied recently, I would say there's a very good chance that you will get your interview. Your interview will happen in the next month or like 2 months. There's a pretty good chance. No guarantees, but pretty good chance. Okay. All right. Let's check out what is going on back over on TikTok. So I have a Greek travel document. How can I get to the US? Can you please tell me the path? No, unfortunately, I can't. I really only am able to help people who are already in the United States. Okay, so that you know, and I'm not an expert on how to get here. It's just not my area that I work in. So that you know, everyone, you can only apply for asylum from within the United States or at a border or port of entry. What does that mean? Well, if you're fully in the country, like you're in and walking around freely in the country, you can apply for asylum, of course. You can also apply when you come to like a border crossing, like at a checkpoint. You can tell the border crossing officials for the United States, I want to apply for asylum. You can also do it at an airport. Most people choose not to do it at an airport because, if you have a valid visa and it looks like they're going to let you in, most people would say that it makes sense not to express your fear at that moment, because if you do at the airport, if you say, oh, I want asylum, I'm afraid to go back to my country, I want asylum, you will get put into expedited deportation proceedings. Okay. It's called expedited removal. And it's the same thing that happens when you come to this, like the southern land border, and ask for asylum, or if you are crossing the border and you get caught by like the border patrol, you get put in, but you want to seek asylum, you get put in expedited removal proceedings, which means that you cannot apply affirmatively with USCIS. Rather, your case is going to be done in immigration court if you get a positive credible fear determination. You'll probably have a credible fear interview. And then if you pass that, if you get a positive decision, then you get to usually get released if you haven't been released already. And you get to go in and have a case in immigration court where you have to actually apply for asylum. And then you explain your case before the immigration judge, and the judge decides whether you get asylum. Okay. Let's see. All right. He's a case, so we decided to dismiss. He's asylum. That's my case. Okay. I don't think that needs addressing. So, all right. Can you explain a defensive asylum application on TikTok? Thank you for the question. What is it? Well, when you hear the term a defensive asylum application, that means an application that's being filed for asylum when the person is in deportation proceedings. A person is in deportation proceedings when the government's trying to deport them. And deportation proceedings start when the government finds someone that they think is eligible to be deported because like they don't have legal status, or because they broke a rule, and there's certain rules that if you break them, you can get deported. And when the government finds a person like this and decides they want to try to deport them, they have to give them a letter or a document called a notice to appear, and they have to file a copy of that with the immigration court. And the filing of that document is what starts the deportation proceedings against the person. So you should receive this document if you're in deportation proceedings. That's how you know that you're in deportation proceedings, is they serve on you, basically give to you this letter that says, notice to appear. We allege that like these following facts are true, and based on these facts, you are eligible to be deported, and therefore we're trying to deport you, and you have to show up at an immigration court on a certain date, a certain time, to explain yourself and defend yourself if you want to. So people usually get in deportation proceedings by either coming to the United States without a valid visa to enter. But saying they want, well, when that happens, when they come without a visa, they get put in deportation proceedings. Or, as I said earlier, if you do certain things to break rules, like if you commit a crime, certain crimes can get you put, even if you have valid status, even if you have a student status or tourist status or whatever, if you commit certain crimes or do certain things that are bad under the rules, then you can get put in deportation proceedings. So when someone is in deportation proceedings and they apply for asylum, it's considered a defensive asylum application because they're applying for asylum as a defense to deportation. It's like, okay, maybe it's true that I'm deportable. Maybe I don't have status anymore. My tourist status ended, so I am technically deportable. However, I'm applying for asylum as a defense. I'm seeking asylum as what's called a form of relief from deportation. So that's why it's called defensive. It's a defense, basically, to a defense to being deported. As where an affirmative asylum case, it's called that because you are affirmatively, or like of your own will and on your own decision, deciding to take the action proactively to reach out and apply for asylum, to tell USCIS, hey, I want asylum. Okay, so affirmative asylum case is one where the person's not in deportation proceedings. If you are not in deportation proceedings, and you want asylum, your only option is to file an affirmative asylum application with USCIS. If you are in deportation proceedings, then and you want asylum, your only option is to file an immigration application with the immigration court. And then in immigration court, your process will be in immigration court. The judge will decide. If it's affirmative asylum with USCIS, you have an affirmative asylum interview with an asylum officer, and they decide whether you get asylum. But then if you get a negative decision and you don't have status at that moment, you get put into deportation proceedings. And your case kind of becomes a defensive case in the sense that now you're still seeking asylum, and you're asking the judge to give you asylum as a form of relief or a defense to deportation. Okay, so that's how the whole affirmative versus defensive asylum thing works. All right. Okay. Got to go. Great talking with you guys. You can continue leaving questions in the comments. I'm going to try to get to them. But thank you for everyone who left a question. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. Appreciate hearing from all of you. It's always a pleasure. And again, I'm Brian Manning. I'm a political asylum lawyer. And it is my honor to serve you in your asylum journey. So thank you. And I hope to see all of you back soon. All right. Give us a call if you need to discuss your case. We'd love to talk with you. Until next time, I'll see you.